Good morning, vinyl community. At least it's morning in my part of the world. As you can tell by the bags under the eyes and general appearance, I just woke up. But because of work, mostly work and circumstance, this is the first time I've had an opportunity to do a video in quite a while. But that notwithstanding, I hope everyone had a great holiday season, and I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate. I hope it was wonderful. So let's start off 2020 right. I hope everyone's doing well. Cheers. Um, what I got for you today is a little bit of everything. I have Christmas gifts. Um, I don't know if you guys know this. I just mentioned it, but it was just Christmas. It was not that long ago. So obviously I have some gifts to show you. I have some thrift store finds as always. I got some stuff I picked up on Boxing Day. I got some stuff I just picked up on a random Wednesday at a used record store. But I think what we're going to start with today is we're going to start with this. This isn't something I would normally talk about. This would not be something that I would feel would be cause for showing you all, but I'm very happy with this. I got a new pair of headphones. I just did a DJ night not that long ago. In fact, it was last Saturday. And what I've been using on my home stereo and for DJing are the same pair of headphones. It was a very expensive pair of Denon DJ headphones, but they were about 11 years old, and just through packing them up and taking them to DJ out in clubs and just the wear and tear. In Dave speak, Dave being me, in Dave speak, they bit the green wiener, aka the right ear was cutting out. So I was due for a new pair of headphones. I tend to do my due diligence in researching headphones, and in fact, I overdo it. But what I ended up getting was a pair of these. Yes, these. Sure, which I is a brand that I trust. Is a pair of SRH 440s. For the money, I mean, what's expensive, what's not these days is all relative, I guess, to what your budget is. But I had a budget in mind, and I didn't want to go over that. And knowing full well I would use these primarily at home, but they had to be kind of adaptable to a DJing in a club environment. I kind of went with that in mind, and these ones checked all the boxes, and I was really happy with these. Very, very happy for the price. If you're in the market for a new pair of headphones, I'm not saying buy these, but throw this in the mix. Try, like I said, like me, do your due diligence. That's a tongue twister, but I was very happy with these SRH 440s from Shure. Very, very good pair of headphones and very sturdy, and I think these will probably last me until I die. At least I hope. So anyways, that's what I got for my home stereo and for DJing. All right, I'm looking around trying to see where I'm going to start here. I'm surrounded. What you don't see is I'm surrounded by records, and I mean surrounded. And really all that means is I've been a lazy bum and I've not been filing stuff away. It's been Christmas. I've been busy. Let's start with Christmas presents, and I'm gonna do this as a 2-for-1 because one was a Christmas present, and I was so happy with it. You'll see what I'm talking about. I went out and bought the companion piece, more or less. Got this from my wife. The Beatles White Album. This is the new stereo mix by Giles Martin, which we're going to talk about for 2 minutes or less. I'll try to fit it into 2 minutes. This is my favorite Beatles album, and I don't want to argue about it. We all got our favorite or our bestest or favorite Beatles album. For whatever reason, the White Album is my favorite. It was the one that I first listened to. My dad had a copy, and that was the first Beatles album I listened to when I was a wee lad. I was probably that big. The headphones at the time were bigger than I was, and I used to think Glass Onion was the coolest song of all time, but I was that big, so what did I know? But so I got the White Album as a Christmas present. Thank you very much. And then I was so happy with that one. A couple of videos ago I talked about the Sgt. Pepper's one, which I believe was the first one that Giles Martin did, and how impressed I was with that one. This one great. We'll talk about that in a second. And then I went out and bought Abbey Road. So I got all three Giles Martin stereo mixes that he did. So we'll talk about the White Album really quickly. The White Album, we're talking about the stereo mix, the new stereo mix, is the one that's least noticeable of a remix. I mean, yes, you can tell bits and pieces are a bit different in the sense that some things are in the front, some things are in the back, some things are more present. But it's not as noticeable as Sgt. Pepper's, because Sgt. Pepper's always sounded good. So there was a little bit more to play with, I guess. And Abbey Road is one that you can really notice a huge difference in the mix. The Abbey Road was a band going back in and recording as a band again, and throwing this kind of throwback album out of them, in the sense that they were a band all recording together again in relative good spirits. And there's bits and pieces on this album that you were barely noticeable or not noticeable at all in the original mix. Like there's little bits of George Harrison's guitar playing that's brought out, and like in all three albums, Ringo's drums are a little bit more present. They sound a bit better, actually, in my opinion. So this one I think is actually a little bit more impressive than Sgt. Pepper's, because like I said, that always sounded good. But I'm going to park that one for a second. And the White Album is, like I said, the one that you would notice the least amount of tweaking, but it's still fantastic. And what I was wondering to myself not that long ago when I was listening to these albums is if these new Giles Martin mixes will stand the test of time. Or will this be seen as a novelty release? And what I'm hoping for is that these will be regarded as the go-to stereo copies for someone to own, in the sense that, and some of you might know this, but back in the day, before I was born, in the 60s, there were two mixes that were released simultaneously. So you could go to the store and you could get the mono mix of an album, and then you can get a stereo mix, and something we all know. And a lot of people covet the mono mixes, original releases. At the time, mono mixes were labored over, in the sense that a stereo mix was done in a day. It was just slapped together, and there's your stereo mix. I think stereo mixes were seen at the time as once again as a bit of a novelty. But the mono mix is what bands and what producers regarded as the go-to mix, or the mix that was the most important to them. So you had a really good mono mix, and then the stereo mix a lot of times were really shit. So what Giles Martin did is he put himself in the headspace of, I'm going to go back in time, like I'm there and I'm doing the stereo mix parallel to the mono mix with the band behind me, and they would approve of this stereo mix. And I believe that's what he did in spades. Just fantastic. And I hope these do stand the test of time. That's how well I think, that's how well I regard them anyways. So that's my little spiel about that. I'm really, and I was hesitant at first when these were first announced. And even when Sgt. Pepper's came out, I didn't go run out and get one. I found it a bit dubious. And then, like I said, I talked about this in a couple of videos ago. I went out and got it was on clearance. I got Sgt. Pepper's, and I was wrong, flat out wrong. So Abbey Road and the White Album. One was a gift, and one was a gift to myself. Cheers, everyone. All right. The other gift I got for Christmas from my dear wife was, you can't go wrong with T-Rex. I got the new double 10-inch. It's a double 10-inch. And one is blue vinyl and one is red vinyl. And what this is an official release, by the way, not one of those, sometimes I show you dodgy, crappy live albums that I pick up, which I don't do anymore. I stick to official releases. What this represents is the last two singles he released in his lifetime, that being Dandy in the Underworld and Celebrate Summer. And they did a double 10-inch release for that, and then on either record they included some different mixes, some monitor mixes, just different things. Really, really happy with this. So thank you very much for that as a Christmas gift. You can't go wrong with T-Rex with me. So there you go. That was it. There wasn't a whole lot of Christmas gifts, to be honest with you. Me going to London was my Christmas gift to myself. So this Christmas, uh, I was telling people, just don't worry about me. Just I had my Christmas gift. I went to London, had a great time. But I was very happy with the Beatles and the T-Rex. So Boxing Day stuff. Let's get right to this. Boxing Day, I went out and I got myself I went to a store locally called Free Cloud. I got myself a much better or an upgrade copy of Black Flag Damaged. Probably one of the most seminal punk albums in the U.S. by the guest of the U.S. punk scene ever. There's Henry punching a mirror. This is Black Flag Damaged. Like I said, the first album with Henry Rollins. I needed an upgrade copy badly, and so I got this on Boxing Day. If you don't know, this one has Six Pack. Everyone kind of knows that song, Six Pack. But oddly enough, and I think I've read that Henry Rollins agrees with me. I prefer, and I think he does as well, is the stuff before he joined the band. I think that Black Flag stuff is absolutely insane, and it's the greatest punk music I think the U.S. has ever produced, in my opinion. But then Henry joined, and they made this fantastic seminal album. And then after that, things got a little bit kind of patchy. Slip It In is good. Then they kind of went into this really weird area, which I don't have time to talk about. But Damaged, picked that up on Boxing Day. And then, what else did I get? Oh yeah, I got this from the same store. This was discounted ridiculously low, and it was on my list of things to get. But I got a copy of Neil Young's Hitchhiker. This was his 1976 unreleased album that was recently re-released, or released for the first time, I guess. Sounds fantastic. Neil doesn't release anything that doesn't sound fantastic on vinyl. This was, like I said, an album he did in 1976 that was unreleased. They didn't release this one. But several songs off this album went on to be on some of his other albums, like Pocahontas and Powderfinger, Human Highway, etc. But this is the album that, as he intended it, he was Hitchhiker. And we all know there's Rockin' Neil with Crazy Horse, and then there's the kind of the low-key acoustic Neil Young, and this is what this is kind of the low-key acoustic Neil. I think both are equally great, but that's what this is, just in case you were wondering. It was Neil Young's Hitchhiker. Let's go to this one. This was released on Record Store Day, or there was a series of these released. But I just show you. Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair, orange vinyl. If you might remember, I think the last video I showed you was the U2 Pop orange vinyl. This is Tears for Fears. This is their orange vinyl. This came out on Record Store Day exclusively through a chain of stores in Canada called Sunrise. And their Universal releases a batch in Europe first, and then they come over to Canada. They get licensed to Sunrise, and they release them on Record Store Day. I got U2's Pop on Black Friday Record Store Day, and then I kind of kicked myself for not picking this up, and then I noticed I couldn't find this. These were selling out of the stores, and I found a Sunrise locally that had one copy left of Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. I mean, to me, quite a bog standard album. It sold so many copies that, you see them at thrift stores, you see them everywhere. It's not an incredibly valuable album, but it is an incredibly great album. Not as great as the one after this, Seeds of Love, but equally, I think it's one of the best albums of the 80s as a complete work. So Songs from the Big Chair, I think we tend to take this album for granted, or Tears for Fears as a band, but like Talk Talk, they are not your standard 80s, even though they had a huge hits off this album, they're not your standard 80s band. I think they're a slight cut above. So anyways, that's my spiel about Songs from the Big Chair. Limited orange vinyl. What are we in here? Woo, that's a lot of talking already. All right, where am I going to go from here? Some new records I bought. This, once again, this was on clearance at a local record store. Once again, it's been on my radar of things, something to pick up. There's always, I don't know how many records are in rotation in my mind of things I want to pick up. But this was discounted at a really, really, really good price at a local record store, so I had to pick it up. It's the single soundtrack, the recent reissue from 2000, was it 18? 17? Anyways, I don't, there's nothing more I can say about this that you don't know. One of the most, one of the best, I guess, soundtracks of the 90s. That, and I would feel The Crow, probably. There's probably others I'm forgetting, but you can't argue with Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Mother Love Bone and Mudhoney and Smashing Pumpkins and Screaming Trees, and just, why don't they make soundtracks like this anymore? Or The Crow. Fantastic, fantastic soundtrack, and I'm glad I got this at a really, really good price. This one, I'm considering it a new vinyl release, even because it's sealed. But it's the much, much sought after 2011 version of Dark Side of the Moon. Give me 60 seconds to talk about this. I have an upcoming video where I'm going to do a shootout of Dark Side of the Moons, and I have one coming up that has rumors. I have so many copies, I'm going to kind of try to discern which one is the best one, I think, out there. And if you go on a lot of these nerdy audiophile groups, like the Steve Hoffman forums, which take those with a grain of salt, trust me. But a lot of people consider there's the Japanese Solid Blue Triangle version that's on, I believe, EMI Odeon or Harvest Odeon Records as the best, and then there's the Mobile Fidelity pressing, which I do have. A lot of people think that's the best. Some people think an original UK pressing's the best. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, think this one is the best. So it's sealed. I have yet to open it. Personally, actually, this happens to be here. I think this is best. This is the last version released was in 2016. I've compared a lot of Dark Side of the Moon copies that I have, and I will go on record saying I think this is the best sounding pressing I've ever heard. Is the one that's available in stores right now. In fact, in a couple of videos ago, I said, forget hunting down that Mobile Fidelity pressing, go for this one, and I stand by that. But I have this one now, which a lot of people in the know seem to think this is a better pressing, and time will tell. I will find that out once I crack it open and I start listening to it. So this is sealed. Got this for a really good price. The 2000, it's out of print, obviously, which is why a lot of people are kind of scrounging around for it. There's still copies kicking around every, here and there on Discogs. But the 2011 pressing of Dark Side of the Moon, which I look forward to cracking open and listening to. Okay, there's one more new one I'm going to wait for. But this was a record store release that just didn't come into Canada. There was a couple of things that just didn't make it into Canada. One was the Buffy St. Marie that I have coming from Europe, which I ordered. And you would think because she's Canadian we would get that release, but none of them made it into Canada as far as I know. And as far as I know, none of this album made it into Canada, or if it did, it was very low numbers, and nothing came into my city. So there was someone on Instagram, the PA Vinyl Junkie. I don't want to say his real name because he doesn't want his name said, but the PA Vinyl Junkie, I think he's from Pennsylvania. Cheers. He posted this, and I made a comment that this was my #1 most wanted record store day title with Pearl Jam, and I was just kicking myself that I couldn't get it. And he sent me a message saying, "Hey, my local store has one left. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, please." He was nice enough I sent him my money, and he was generous enough to send me this copy. And when this kind of stuff happens, I don't take this for granted. I know there's a lot of people out there who make videos who get lots of VCLTs. I don't get a lot of them, which is fine with me. I'm fine with that. But when I do get something sent to me that, even though I send the money for it, I appreciate your time more than you'll ever know. It's a pain in the ass. You gotta go to the store, you gotta buy it, you gotta box it up, you gotta ship it, take it to the post office, blah blah blah. That's It takes time out of your day. So when it happens, man, thank you. So this comes via the PA Vinyl Junkie in Pennsylvania. Is Fight, War of Words. One of my favorite metal albums to come out of the 90s. This was Rob Halford's first band after he left Judas Priest. And this is on white and black kind of splattered vinyl, limited to 1,500 copies. None of which made it into Canada. Thank you, Record Store Day. Assholes. Anyways, just, man, did I rediscover my love for this album after hearing it again, after a lot of years. Scott Travis plays drums on this album, who was the drummer in Judas Priest on Painkiller, and now I guess now he's back as the drummer. But you might not know this. The guitar player on this album is one Russ Parrish. Who is Russ Parrish? Russ Parrish is the guitarist for Steel Panther. His name is now Satchel. He played guitar. He was the guitar player on this album. Did you know that? It's true. And then he went on to play with Halford in his albums that he released just as Halford. But yeah, that's true that. So Satchel plays the guitars on this album. Fantastic album. Thank you once again. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for sending me this PA Vinyl Junkie. Man, I owe you one. All right. I got something to show you. I've talked about this album in the past, and I've kind of slagged it slightly as slightly overrated. It doesn't mean I don't think it's a good album. I think it's just overrated. There's other albums by this band I would recommend. But as far as having a first pressing in your collection of this album, it's quite the little... I get to impress my dog by having this in my collection because I don't really have people over at my house. But it's quite an ego stroke to have this album. I found, we're into used finds now, by the way. I found a copy. Sorry, these are all mixed together. Thrift store finds, everything. I'll try to clarify it as I come to it. I found a first pressing of Pet Sounds. This is a first pressing from... if you go on, this is the nerdy shit I'm going to talk about. This is I had to go on Discogs and try to find what pressing this is, etc., etc. There's first pressings from a plant in Los Angeles. There's first pressings from Scranton. Is Scranton in Pennsylvania? I think it is. Scranton pressing plant. And they all have different symbols in the runout grooves. One's a star, which is the LA pressing plant, and one has an anvil or a triangle, which means the Scranton plant. I thought I had an LA copy, but I don't. I have a first pressing Scranton pressing. And that's nerdy as hell. And I am embarrassed I just said that. So I apologize for that. First pressing Pet Sounds in good condition. I'm not going to say it's in excellent condition. It's a VG. It's a strong VG++, if that's such a rating. I don't know what more I can say about this. And I've been remiss for not having this in my collection on vinyl. I've had a CD copy forever because like something else I'm going to talk about coming up. I always want to have an opinion on something, but to have an opinion, I need to own it. I never want to seem ignorant on anything to do with music that I'm talking about. So even though I had it on CD, I needed to have a vinyl version so I can go later on and talk about Pet Sounds, which I will now. Pet Sounds, amazing find. First pressing, capital DT 2458 is the catalog number in case you're keeping score at home. But there you go. I will report back. I've just spin cleaned it. I need to have another listen to it, and I will report back with how this is sounding anyways. But that's what this is, and it's a duophonic pressing, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but it says duophonic on the label. There you go. Anyways, the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, amazing find. As was this. I've had this in my collection before. Stupidly, like I talk about a lot, I sell things when I need to fund trips to Europe. So I sold my copy of this not that long ago, but I got another copy. I found another copy for next to nothing. Time Fades Away by Neil Young. This is an original pressing with the poster inside. as I fumble for the poster. Well, it's more like a fold-out newspaper, I guess. But anyways, first pressing of Neil. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter first pressing or not. I'm going to assume that the new pressing that's out now that he released is actually better sounding. But I got an original pressing of Neil Young's Time Fades Away. Fantastic album. I'm trying to censor myself for talking about albums because I'm going to run super long on time. Richard, this is a kind of a, not a really funny story or odd story, but my friend Tom called me from a local record store. They said, hey, I'm at this record store. They've got a ton of used Depeche Mode in their used vinyl bins, and they got a whole ton of prog and psych. I'm like, yep. I'm in the car and I'm on my way. So I went down there, and all the Depeche Mode stuff I have, it would be hard pressed for me to find something I don't have by Depeche Mode at this point. And all the prog stuff, although it was admittedly kind of cool, was stuff I didn't really need, or it was kind of obscure. So I went down there to look at the prog and the Depeche Mode stuff, and I ended up leaving with this. Richard and Linda Thompson, Shoot the Lights Out. Or Shoot Out the Lights, sorry. Highly regarded as one of the greatest albums of all time. A lot of people put this in their top 100, top 200 albums of all time. Just fantastic from 1982. This is an original pressing on Hannibal Records. But once again, I've had this in my collection years and years ago, 20 years ago, and I sold it, and I haven't had another version since. But just very happy to have this back in my collection. Was Richard and Linda Thompson, Shoot Out the Lights. Here we go. I found a mono pressing of Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. And I feel like quoting High Fidelity, where Barry's going to hug me and say he didn't have Blonde on vinyl. He's going to give me a big hug and tell me it's going to be okay. Well, it's okay now. I have Blonde on vinyl. Bob Dylan, to me, really quickly, I've seen him in concert a couple times. I have his, I have Blood on the Tracks, and I have some of his CDs in my collection. But he's someone that I've just never got around to. There's bands you just don't get around to, or artists you don't get around to exploring their full catalog. Because of my friend Tom and a few other people, Bob Dylan, bands like the Grateful Dead, etc. I've talked about this before. They have influenced me. Those guys have influenced me to kind of start discovering these artists in depth. And Blonde on Blonde is finally in my collection. A really nice mono copy. I don't believe the mono stereo thing. It doesn't matter to me what it is. But just for the sake of transparency, I got a mono copy of Blonde on Blonde. Allman Brothers, Eat a Peach. I've never had this on vinyl, and this was $1.99. I got to clean up some ringware, which I'm pretty good at cleaning up that stuff off that. But apart from that, it's an original Capricorn Records pressing of Eat a Peach, which I don't have. So I'll report back on that. Really quick story, and I may or may not insert the ad right here, because I tell these stories, and I don't know if a lot of people think I'm fucking bullshitting them or not, which I assure you, I don't lie. I got better things to lie about. Like, I lie to my wife how much money I spent on vinyl. See, that's a better lie to tell than telling you bullshit stories. This was on New Year's Eve. Someone posted an ad on our local online kind of buy, sell, swap thing called Kijiji, saying they had a box of records, $20. Takes them all, and I'm hoping I can figure out how to insert the ad right here, right now. And he said he had some blues albums. He said he had some jazz, country stuff in there, and there was a book on Etta James on the top of the stacks. He didn't really know what was inside the records. But it was New Year's Eve. We weren't doing anything. I've already celebrated my New Year's Eve. My DJ night was a pre-New Year's Eve party, 80s night. That was my night. Sold out crowd, by the way. I just want to say that again. Sold out. So I wasn't doing anything. I told my wife, I'm gonna jump in the car. It was about 3 minutes from my house. Ran over there. Super nice elderly couple who were moving. In a couple days, and they had this box of records in their garage. A lot of them I'm looking over there because I have not had a time to clean them, so they will be coming up in another video. But I'm looking at some Hendrix, I'm looking at some soul stuff. And this was in the box as well. An original first pressing of John Coltrane, My Favorite Things. Can you believe that? It was buried I'd say half the albums I threw out, like, a lot of bog standard kind of shit that, you find at thrift stores. But what was in there that was stuff that I could salvage was, there's a Thelonious Monk album over there I'm looking at. I'll get around to clean that up and I'll show you next video. But first pressing, John Coltrane, My Favorite Things. I have a newer pressing, which I think I'll pass along now, aka sell, because I have a first pressing and it sounds fantastic and it's in excellent condition. So New Year's Eve, it just pays not to go out and drink and get drunk and get hungover, because if you're a nerd, you go to some guy's house who's moving and you buy a box of records for 20 bucks. Best 20 bucks I've spent in a long time. Some really amazing stuff I got to show you next video, but I want to show you this one. Man, was I at his house, I didn't look at the records. I just said, you know what? Let's play some record roulette here. Here's 20 bucks. Had a quick chat with the guy, really nice elderly couple. Took the box, went out to my car, and lit up a smoke. I had a look through in my car, and then it was just like, I won the roulette game. So there you go. All right. So the rest of that stuff will be coming up in another video. I found a polygram pressing. This is a much upgrade. This is not working out to be good English today, and you can tell I woke up. This is a much goodlier version of this album than I already have. Is Cream, Disraeli Gears. I've talked about this before. I'm a massive Cream fan, so I'm always doing an upgrade, getting a better upgrade, and I found this. I can't remember where I found this, at the thrift store maybe. Yeah, Disraeli Gears, really nice polygram pressing. I don't think you need to see the label, but there it is. Yeah, so when I find nice upgrades of some of my go-to albums, it's cause for celebration. So there you go. Disraeli Gears, one of the best album covers of all time. One of the best bands of all time, one of the best albums of all time, Disraeli Gears. Got this for $1.99 in the shrink. ZZ Top Rio Grande Mud. It's in the friggin' shrink, and it's an original London Records pressing. $1.99. Amazing. This one has Just Got Paid, which I think is the song people might know, and Francine, I guess. But Just Got Paid is the killer song off this album. But an original pressing, London Records pressing of Rio Grande Mud. That glare, because it's in the shrink. Amazing, amazing find. I love this album. I love early ZZ Top. I got a copy of Elton John's second album. This is the one that has Your Song. And I've talked about this when I showed his first album, Empty Sky, a couple videos ago. Empty Sky and this album, I think, are two of his best albums he ever did. I mean, there's great stuff after this, but this is true Elton John. I mean, Empty Sky is more of a kind of slightly progressive psych sounding in places. But this was his breakthrough album. This has Your Song on it. Is it mono or stereo? It's stereo, suitable for mono. But this is an original Uni Records pressing from Canada, I believe. No, it's from the States. This is a US pressing. That's weird. This was $1.99 again. Very happy to have this one. Please don't undersell. I mean, here's the thing. I'll tell you this really quickly. I might have said this already. I saw the Elton John movie Rocket Man on the plane ride back from London, England, and I thought it was the biggest hunk of crap I've ever seen in my life. Sorry if you liked it. Sorry. Once again, please don't argue with me. We could disagree and still be friends. You have your opinion, I have my opinion. I thought it was the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen. So with that in mind, it's kind of tainted my view of Elton a bit. I don't know. It shouldn't. That's a psychological thing. But anyways, early Elton John, just fantastic. And please don't ignore that part of his history. I think it's some of the best music he ever did, and some of the best music of the 70s. Got a copy of Bob Dylan's Empire Burlesque. This was on Boxing Day. I'm jumping back to Boxing Day stuff now. This was $2.50 via Boxing Day half price sale at a local store. I got a copy. I've never seen this album previously on vinyl, although it's not that rare. I just don't think it's sold enough copies, and it's definitely not that highly regarded. The Cheap Trick, The Doctor. This is from 1986. What's commonly referred to as their keyboard album, because at the time, this is a gold stamp promo, by the way. Gold stamp promo. Which is meaningless on an album like this, but this is their record label at the time, CBS or whatever, CBS, told them, we need a hit, and we don't believe you are writing songs that are good enough to be hits, so we have outside writers coming in, and they did an 80s mix, like what I call an 80s mix on this album. Keyboards, just horrible 80s production, and it sounds dated, and it sounds, I mean, there's some good songs underneath all that gunk they threw on on the instruments, but The Doctor, I had to get it for $2.50 because you just don't see this album very often, at least I don't, on vinyl, so just have to have it in the collection. Sealed copy. See, it says still sealed. See? This was at a Goodwill, a local Goodwill, for $1.99. So whoever bought this kept it sealed and then donated it. Was the original soundtrack to Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, starring David Bowie. And the soundtrack is done by Ryuichi Sakamoto. I always say his name wrong. Ryuichi Sakamoto. Anyways, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence soundtrack. Still sealed, and I've yet to unseal it. Where are we going to go from here? This was on Boxing Day once again, too. Sorry, I'm jumping around. This was $2.50 as a copy of Pink Floyd's Metal. There is some wear on the cover, but the vinyl is better than my copy. This is an original Harvest Records pressing. So I'm going to do some Franken album, or make a Franken album, as I always say. I'm going to swap out the vinyl for my copy and then put that one in this one and then sell this one. But yeah, there's nothing more I can say about Metal that you probably don't already know. This has the song Echoes on it as the last song. And Echoes was the song that they recorded, which kind of they felt was the way forward. And that's what kind of got them into their spacier, kind of weird sounds, I guess. Or maybe not spacier. They were kind of spacey before, but this was the sound that they thought, okay, this is our sound, we're going to move forward with this. And then they made Dark Side of the Moon, that average album. Alright, I think I might park the rest. Oh, wait, no, I got to show this one. I might show this in another video too, because I just can't believe I found this. One of my favorite progressive rock albums is a band called Colosseum, and the album's called Valentine Suites. And the first song on that album is a song called The Kettle, which is unlike anything else they've done. It was a really heavy rock song, and it was never released on single other than a promo single in the US. And I found it. I found a copy of The Kettle on Dunhill Records, a US promo, not for sale, white label, and I'm not lying, this is in NM condition. It looks unplayed. This is going in my box of favorite singles of all time because I can't believe I found this promo copy of The Kettle. The only way it was released on single at the time was this US white label. In a lot of ways, this is my favorite find I've had. And you know what? I was going to talk about a box set I bought, but I'm already at 40 minutes, and I need to talk about it in length. And I need to talk about a fellow YouTuber, Billy Hurst, which ties into that. But I'm already at 40 minutes almost, so we're going to cut it off right here. Park that box set for next video because it's something I want to talk to you about. Woo, that was a lot. I told you it was a lot, and I promise you I've not even covered half of what I found since my last video. So there's lots to talk about coming up in 2020. Cheers once again. So we're going to sign off right now. Like I said, I hope everyone had a great holiday season. Follow me on Instagram, NAZZ_NOMAD. Subscribe if you want. Doesn't matter to me. If you want, great. Click that bell icon like those pro YouTubers say. Click the bell icon so you'll be first to know about this face coming up first on your feed. And subscribe and like. Or dislike. Doesn't matter to me. Dislikes don't bother me. This has been David Michael, aka Nazz Nomad. We'll see you next time. Cheers, and let's have a great 2020 together, okay?